This screencast will show you how to build a basic approval workflow for SharePoint 2007 using Visual Studio 2008. For today's demonstration, I'm going to build a basic approval workflow with a single approver for an expense report. In this case, I'm using a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, but you could also use an InfoPath form as well as other types of documents. For this demonstration, I will send the approval email as a SharePoint task, which will show up in the approver's email as an Outlook task. And for that reason, I'm going to build a custom ASP.NET task form and a custom content type for the approval form. Since building a custom content type and a custom ASP.NET task form is a little bit outside of the scope of this particular demonstration, I'm going to refer you to my blog, in which I will have associated with this video a link on how to create custom feature, which is where you create the custom content type, a link for the code download for this example, which will have the custom ASP.NET form and the content type and how to deploy it, a video on how to create a basic SharePoint task, and a video on how to create an escalation of an overdue SharePoint task. So there will be links that the URL that you see there associated with the video on building a basic approval workflow. So let's go ahead and look at our portal here. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I do have my expense report document library with the John Doe expense report here. This will be the document that we will run our workflow on. So the next thing we're going to look at here is our task list. Now the task list is where we're going to actually store the information about the approval task. So it'll have the approver information. It will have whether or not the approver approved or rejected the expense report in this case, and it will also have a field that will hold the approver's notes. Now, in order to hold that custom information about the approver and the notes and whatnot, I had to create a content type that will hold that non-SharePoint specific information. And again, on my blog, I have a workshop that shows you how to create that custom content type. So now that I've actually created that, I'm going to go ahead and hook it up to our task list here. I'm going to go to the settings link, go to list settings, and right now I don't have any custom content types here. So the first thing I need to do is turn on the ability to have custom content types. So I go to my advanced setting tab, I hit allow management of content types, hit the OK button. Then the next thing I have a content types list here. And by default, you get a basic task and a workflow task. And in this case, I'm going to add from existing site content types. And when I hit that button, you'll see that I have my custom approval form content type. Again, this is the one that I created as a separate step, but not completely related to building a workflow, but more about how to build custom content types and forms for a workflow. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add this custom content type and hit the OK button. And then what you will see is I have a custom content type that was added, and it added a couple of fields here for me, the approval form notes field and the approval form status field. That'll be where I hold the approved or rejected values, and this is where I will hold the notes from the approver. Okay, now that that's done, let's go ahead and bring up Visual Studio. So I'm going to close the portal and bring up Visual Studio here. And let's go ahead and start our new project. Now again, I'm using Visual Studio 2008, so if you're using Visual Studio 2005, the workflow part will still work correctly, but how you start a project and how you deploy it will be a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the File button. I'm going to do a new project. I'm going to do an Office 2007 SharePoint sequential workflow. I'm going to call this one Basic Approval Workflow. I'm going to put this in my C:\demonstrations folder. Hit the OK button. And now it asks me where do I want to put the workflow, so I'll choose a directory here. Let's get this out of here. I'm going to put it at my HTTP localhost. I'm going to put it in my screencast team site. And when I click next, it will, oops, got the, there we go, screencast team site. And then it will go to that team site and it'll show me all the libraries and lists that I can connect to. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to the expense report team site. Hit next, and I'm going to have this allowed to be manually started, which is what you need, which is something you should do if you're doing development, and when an item is created. So I hit the finish button, and Visual Studio has now created my project for me with all of the settings that I created here on the side. Now I won't go through what all the SharePoint workflow activity shapes do for you, since I've created and put it on my blog site a basic how to create a document workflow video. So rather than go through all of the activities and what they do, I'm just going to go ahead and use the ones that I need in order to build out this particular workflow. This one we have is the on workflow activated activity. That's the one that the Visual Studio will give you out of the box. And so leaving that one there, the first thing I'm going to do as part of my my workflow business logic is I'm going to actually send the approver a task asking them to look at the document that was just uploaded and decide whether or not it should be approved or rejected and add any notes. And so in order to do that, I'm going to use the create task with content type. And the reason why I use this one versus the create task type is because in this scenario, I want to actually use a custom ASP.NET form with content, with a custom content type that I created. So let me go ahead and call this one create this particular activity. Sorry, let me go over here. Create approval task. And for every new task, you need a custom or a new correlation token. So I'm going to call this one, we'll call it primary approval token. Let's say if you have more than one approval process, you could have a primary, secondary, etc. And so the owner activity is going to be workflow 1, which is the workflow here. The next thing I need to do is create a task ID for my task here. It needs to be a unique identifier or a global unique identifier. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio's tool menu, go to create GUID to get one, and I'm going to go ahead and use the option number 4, and I'm going to copy the GUID that it gives me, and then I'm just going to paste that right in here. And so now I have a GUID. And the last thing, well, not the last thing, but the next thing I need to do is create a variable to hold my task properties. So I will go ahead and click this button, tell it to bind to a new member. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to create that variable as a field. The last thing I need to do is give it a custom content type ID. So for that, I need to go back to my portal. So go ahead, back to my portal. And I'm going to go back to my team site, which is a screencast team site. I'm going to go to the task list, and I'm going to go to the settings, list settings, and then I'm going to go to my custom approval form content type. Again, so this, when I send out the task, this is the SharePoint form essentially they will fill out in order to give me the approval feedback that I need. So I click on that, and I go one more level up to the parent level, and the custom content type ID that I'm looking for is right here in the URL. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. I'm going to copy it, and now that I've got that, go ahead and minimize here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it right here in my content type ID. And again, when in the document in which I show you how to build a custom content type, I describe how to create the ID and all the things that go along with that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a task with the custom content type ID of that particular task form that I've created, again, in a separate step.